all set? Okay. All right, so we're out of executive session. And thank you for your patience if anyone stayed on the meeting online. Just for your understanding, for those who may not be used to meetings, there's a number of reasons that the board goes into an executive session. Negotiations is one of those. So we had some work to do. We've now opened the meeting up, and we have one item before we get back into public comment for our regular meeting, regular special meeting, and that is our workshop of the American Rescue Plan discussion. So with that being said, we've had a number of meetings about the rescue plan. We presented it at the state of the town. We had an all boards and commissions meeting. We've talked about it at another board of selectmen's meeting, I think. And I've presented to the board some thoughts, things that we may or may not want to do with the funding. I would suggest that there are a couple of things we would want to do right away and get to a town. We had decided that we were going to follow our normal appropriations process for the rescue package funding, and that would be anything over 20,000 to go through Board of Finance, then town meeting. Though that's not necessarily required, it just seemed like that would be the best course of action, just to keep it transparent. So with that, I don't know if the board is open to, maybe I'll go down the list that I have here, and if there's other things you guys want to talk about, we can just talk about them afterwards. Does that sound good, or did you want to start with anything else?
No, you can do that, Mike. So the things that are highlighted in the orange color are the things that you're asking, that your things that you're recommending. Is that correct?
I think we should talk about it. I'm not sure that he has a color copy. There's a gray there. If it's black and white, the gray highlighted. Yeah. So basically there's certain reasons for the use of these funds, and each thing that I'm going to go through is would fall under one of the eligible uses as far as we can see. Again, just to remind people, there's no approval process for this. We're going through guidance we're seeing through CCM or Treasury or any of our partners. A lot of towns are doing the same thing right now. In fact, I was on a call just today. They were talking about, really trying to appropriate funds to social services, mental health needs, and housing. I did not have housing on here initially, and that's why I wanted to talk too, because it didn't appear to us that like affordable housing would be an allowable use. However, after the meeting today, where CCM was on it, they basically said, listen, if you're going to do something with affordable housing that is going to help people that are in the lower income brackets, it may be something that we take a look at doing. So I don't have anything on here for that, but I think as we go through our conversation, there may be some funds we could look at talking about. I have some ideas anyway. Yes. Yes. No, one at a time. Let's talk about them one at a time. And if we agree on something, let's just move it forward. All right. So I think this is probably the easiest one. And that's the per diem firefighter pilot program, 3 years. I have it listed at $165,000. So basically, we would do this as a contribution to the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company. We would have a caveat on it that it would be appropriated each year. Okay. And basically we want to make sure that they're positioned to respond to fire emergencies as needed. And this has been a need that has been identified, yet it's unbudgeted, and would help us, especially in the event that there is a reemergence of COVID, to make sure we have enough daytime coverage and other issues are covered by our fire company. Any discussion on that?
The only discussion I have is, so it's a 3-year plan. So we know that once it's been there for 3 years now, it's going to become part of the budget after that, probably. So I would say that I wouldn't mind doing it for the 3-year plan, but have it revisited in 3 years to make sure it is working. It is what we expected out of it. And then it doesn't automatically go into the budget after 3 years. It would be redecided by the town whether it made sense to go back into the budget or not.
You just have to turn your mic on.
I agree.
Okay. All right. So just so we're clear, what's going to happen, we'll go through these, is that we're going to go to the Board of Finance. I'm going to go to the Board of Finance on Monday with a proposal for, on Wednesday. I said Monday. Sorry, it is Monday. Thank you. Wednesday with a proposal. So what I'll do is we'll just take a motion to include each item as we see fit in that proposal. It's not going to be on the appropriations request it's not an appropriations request. That's why this is just a little different. It's at a totally different fund. So it'll just be part of a proposal that we'll look for their recommendation on. So motion to approve the recommendation of a 3-year pilot. Motion to approve a recommendation of a contribution to the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company for $165,000 to be allocated in equal parts over 3 years.
So moved.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So some of these things I'm not necessarily sure if we should go to the next town meeting with, and just so I can set the table here, we're going to get into that, I think, later in the meeting, but I do see a town meeting soon on this, possibly called even as soon as later this week or early next week. We'll call it. The expenses at 298 Norwich Westerly Road, I had put in here to cover expenses for potentially for 6 months. As I wrote in the synopsis, last year we fortunately had this space available to provide square footage to our school for needed distancing due to COVID-19. This expenditure will cover costs from the March 3rd through August to keep the space available should it be forecasted to be needed during the summer or in the next school year. The expenses are going to exist, it looks like, for this period of time. And I think this is a reasonable use of funds, and it would cover the costs that we have that are unbudgeted. Thoughts?
I don't think we have much options with regards to this, but I did want to ask about something, and not to take us off track. Does the Board of Education have involvement with this at all? Are they working out of this too, or not?
So they have their own funds for COVID relief.
So they have something like this too.
They are, I'm sure, talking about, and I apologize, actually, I'm looking at the agenda and the action on these items. I should wait until the actual meeting. This was a workshop, so I apologize. I won't bring anything else to motion until we get to the meeting part, because I want public comment before that. So
Okay.
yeah.
So we only will have for right now about $768,000. It's allocated in 2 tranches. So the discussion now is this first amount that we're going to allocate. So the Board of Ed has completely separate funds from the 1.5 million that the town is getting.
Oh,
So
okay.
they have their own process on how they're going to allocate those funds. And so now we're looking to allocate some of or all of the 768,000 that we have for the current time period. And then we'll get that second amount June, don't remember the exact date, but June of 2022.
Okay.
So if that's helpful.
And I'm not sure if that was what your question was. That what you were asking, or
Yeah, I was trying to find out, were we leaving them out and they won't get what they need
No.
to? Okay.
No,
No.
but there's still a thought, Christine, they still owe us money from last year as far as the lease agreement, correct? Did we collect that money yet? Wasn't it around $17,000
That's been invoiced, but it's not been received yet.
so it's still owed to us
Yeah.
for that, which would that come out of the $75,000?
No, I would think of that separately.
that's last fiscal year. So, well, I mean, so that's a good question, because part of this is last fiscal year, I guess, technically, when you talk about the time period that these funds can be utilized for. But no, I think we talked about that kind of separately.
There's been dialogue with the chair as far as those monies coming back to us.
Yes, the chair is aware. The chair is aware that
Mhm.
those funds are owed to us. So, I mean, those conversations were had. That was part of the agreement we had initially. So,
Okay, so I agree with you. We'll have public comment at the end and get some more input, and then we take things to a vote at that point.
yeah, we can take it to a vote then. But I mean, I'd like to that's fine. So, I think this is general agreement. That's okay. This one here, communications, phone, text, email system. I'm going to skip over that, but I only because I don't have enough information right now. I just put a placeholder in there for that. I think we do need something like that, but I think it's going to be a lot less money. And I think, in fact, I have a conference call tomorrow morning with another vendor to talk about having something like this. And we got a price from one vendor and it was already much less than this. I think the vendor we're meeting with tomorrow, I would imagine, would hopefully be even less. But that is something that I think we should definitely look into. It'll make a big help for the town in its communication efforts. But just for the public's information, a phone, text, email type system. We have email, but COVID-19 exposed a deficiency in communication ability for non-emergency day-to-day information. This can be corrected with a system available for reverse messaging. The current system we have can only be used for imminent emergencies. So this would be more of like we want to let somebody know something that's non-emergent. We could talk to them about that. There's a vote tomorrow, or this road happens to be closed or whatever. So more to come on that. HVAC upgrades, new old town hall buildings. So basically, old town hall has no ventilation system. New town hall definitely could use some upgrades if we're going to stay in those buildings. Again, this is appropriate use of funds.
Yeah, I marked this one because I had talked about this with you slightly and Christine way back in the spring. And this is I thought would be absolutely what we might want to use because they actually can do it and they get the money back. We would get the money back completely at the end. And when we talked about this at all, it was just to really do the old building because the other building was in fairly good shape, correct? So could we get in touch with this guy? Called me many times and the material looks very interesting. I pass it on to you or whatever you might want.
Yeah, this is like a purification type UV air treatment system.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know much about it, so we could definitely look into it.
There and his phone number is in there and everything.
What are the thoughts on, again, I don't know if the number is a good number or not. I just put a number in there because I don't want to go anywhere with this until there was some, my feeling is, my feeling is I'd like to see town hall brought into one building. And I had mentioned that here at the school building a while back, but if we're going to remain in those buildings that we're in, I do think that there should absolutely needs to be some sort of a air system upgrade at the old town hall. And definitely, I think some upgrades would be in order. Thoughts? Bob?
No, just hear more about it as we go. I don't have any particular thoughts on it.
You don't have any thoughts about the ventilation system? Okay. Health district funding. I don't know that we actually got an official request yet from the health, did we? The health district. But other supporting districts have been looking for additional funds as part of these allocations that the towns are getting. It seemed appropriate to me to allocate based on what some of these other organizations were asking for 1% of our funds to our health district for the amount of work that they've been doing. That seemed like a very reasonable amount to allocate to them and to show, our investment in the work that they've been doing, let alone, whether it's the the testing that they did, the education series. I mean, I tapped them many times to do Zoom education things for the community, COVID, COVID vaccines. You know, they've been willing to do that. So I would look for 1% of the funds for the health district as well. So that's a $15,000 number. And that would help them to make sure, again, if there's an uptick, we want them to be prepared and have the resources available to support us.
I checked that off as something I had before. So
Okay,
Mhm, mhm.
great.
Bob, you go to Legislate's meetings. Have they said anything about what they would anticipate to request?
not as
from
of
the
yet.
towns?
They canceled the meeting for July and the
Okay.
last meeting was in May. So it has not come forward yet.
Okay, yeah, because they're one of the groups, the aid is not going to any health districts or anything like that. They're looking to the municipalities to then give it out.
We did approve a small appropriation earlier in the year, but when they did ask for that, which we gave them. So, but that was under $4,000, I believe.
That was from the municipal CRF.
Right.
I don't think it hurts us to be proactive on that one. And even in the event that they requested more from us, you know, we could take a look at that request later, but I think it's a good thing.
I will tell you this, they're considered one of the top health districts in Connecticut. Other health districts look to them for guidance. So
Yeah,
That's good.
I would agree with that.
Excellent.
All right. So that was under number 1,
Right.
support public health expenditures by funding COVID-19 mitigation efforts, medical expenses, behavioral health care, and certain public health and safety staff. Under the number 2, Treasury guidance for allowable use of the funding, a couple things. Address negative economic impacts caused by the public health emergency, including economic harms to workers, households, small businesses impacted by industries in the public sector. I have here first a COVID-19 relief program for business recovery in the amount of $100,000. I think Juliet and Brett had talked about that as a number. Businesses in many ways were hit hard during COVID-19. Economic development is in the process of putting together a plan for those businesses to access funding through this program for their needs, be it improvements, securing workers, or other needs. So EDC has had a general discussion about this. They are going to come back with a subcommittee with more information. So at this time, I don't see us moving anything forward tonight on that because I don't think we have enough information to move that to the next step. But
yeah, I agree with the concept, helping businesses, but I just I want to make sure that the process is a fair process, fair for all, makes sense that people that truly need the assistance get it. So once the EDC comes back with something that we can really sink our teeth into, it would make sense. But the concept of helping business makes good sense to me. So
I agree.
and I think it has to be equitable as far as, you know, how much someone is given. There has to be some sort of way to delineate that, you know, whether it's, you know, however it's based. So we'll look forward to hearing from their an actual recommendation from them. Social services funding via the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center. Again, the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center has started to step up for North Stonington. You might have seen tomorrow, Unite CT and the United Way are going to be here in North Stonington at this parking lot, providing food assistance as well as rental or landlord assistance that was coordinated through the PNC. The PNC, basically, I could see the PNC working to distribute funds if needed. There are a lot of other outlets for people to get actual money, but you know, there may be some needs that fall outside of what's available. So I would suggest that we give the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center 1% of the funds, which would be $15,000, to implement some social services help for North Stonington residents.
I agree. I think that the help should go to those who need it.
I agree. In fact, I think it could be more for them. They've really reached out and we've had to take money away from them. I think it would be, if we could give them a little bit more since they are really spending time with us, I think it would be good, but.
I kind of think we should, and I don't disagree with you on that. I put 15. I figured the 1% of the
Right.
funds, and if we feel that there's a need, we can go back and get more.
Okay.
You know, we're not allocating all this money in
Okay.
one time. Okay. So this workforce development program, much work has been completed on the possibility of North Stonington providing a robust workforce development training program. Details are being worked out on implementation, but initial costs to get the program off the ground are estimated. Details of the program continue to be forthcoming. Jennifer Dayton, EDC member, has worked with area participating organizations. I've been in a couple of meetings where we've been talking about this possibility, you know, helping to get workers the training they need in order to get back into the workforce is something that would be, you know, eligible. Is it something North Stonington wants to be involved in or allocate money to? Discussion.
Depending on future negotiations with this building, I think that it makes sense if we could use a portion of this building for this, as long as there's not any additional expense to the taxpayer. So get people back to work is a great thing. I'd like to see a presentation on it, though.
Yeah, I think that's the struggle is, well, I mean, we could get a presentation from Jennifer. She can share her vision, and EDC, you know, it's been presented to them as far as what they see. But
No, I
there's-
understand. Just so what I don't want to have happen is we sometimes get involved in things and then there's cost that the taxpayer doesn't know about, and then we're down the road 2 or 3 months down the road and find, oh yeah, by the way, it costs us this or it costs us that, and now we didn't know that. So I think that just as long as we get all the cards on the table, we know exactly what, if there's any cost to the town at all, if there's any income to the town. But the concept of workforce development is a great concept. If it turns out that somewhere in this building is available and we can do that, rather than have the building empty, that would make sense to me.
Nina, do you have any comments on the idea?
Yeah, I've heard some of the conversations too, when they have talked about it, and I think this could help the building a lot if it became successful, and we wouldn't have a lot of problems. I think if we could start to build something like this, but we don't have the money to build it unless you think we can add more money to this.
Well, this money that's been identified here, so the number put on this is 225,000, and that number represents estimates that we have to get this program off the ground. Yes, we have a building, so it would be this building here, but it would be the equipment, education, you know, the instruction, things like that if we wanted to. It's just, do we want to be, there's a lot of talk to be had about this. It is a big undertaking, and we've been talking with some college, the heads of a couple of colleges about this as well to see what the interest was. The feeling I got from the conversations was that there wasn't like an excitement about the fact that we have a building here in North Stonington. Like for us, we see that we're, you know, halfway between New York and Boston, and that we're halfway between Providence and Hartford, and that we're off the highway. Like, oh, these are all selling points that we see. I'm not saying they don't see them, but they have buildings already. They have place in, like, now everybody's remote. So I'm not really sure, you know, not everything can be taught remote, and not everybody learns remotely, which we all know that. So
I see the initial 225, but then I'm wondering what comes after that. So once the 225 is gone, I don't want the town to be on the hook for additional monies every year. So those are the questions we need to look into. That's all.
I agree. Yeah. So I further discussion on that one. Although I will say, when we had our meeting with all boards and commissions, that was one of the higher ranked interests from that group. You know, everybody seemed to kind of get behind that idea. So, all right, cultural recovery. So the Cultural Coalition, which I did supply to you a letter from them, they have, we don't have a cultural coalition here in North Stonington, but we certainly have arts and culture. We certainly have workers who have been adversely affected by COVID. And we certainly do owe it to that segment to invest and see it back to pre-COVID activity levels. And the Cultural Coalition has offered to help towns put their plan together to achieve the goal. They have requested from towns an allocation of 1% of their funds, which in this case would be $15,000. So I would recommend that we join the other towns and make that contribution to the Cultural Coalition, which is our representing area culture.
Okay, so this is one I don't see eye to eye on with you. Not that we don't have culture in North Stonington, but as far as a town, we don't put on Shakespeare in the Park. We don't have outdoor concerts except for the private ones that are done by the winery and the brewery and so on. I know we have musicians in town. No one's come up and said that they were looking for monies to supplement them for not working for those months. When I think of North Stonington, I don't think of at least not today, as a center of arts and culture. It's a hardworking town. It's a farm town. A lot of blue collar workers. Again, the winery and the brewery do put on events, but they're private events. We don't have that green area where you see some towns will put on, Thursday night concerts and so on. And I understand what you're saying. I just don't. I almost looked at this from the Cultural Coalition and said, gee, they found a way that they might be able to get some money because of money's going out to different towns. So why don't we jump on this and see if we can get some of those towns to give us some of that money? We probably disagree on this, Mike, but I don't see this as a big need.
Yeah, I mean, I have the advantage that you don't, that I go to a lot of meetings and hear the regional impact of the Cultural Coalition and certainly culture. And we have a lot of cultural activities here in North Stonington. And I think there's impacts that maybe we're not hearing about it from our seats. I would suggest that if there's trepidation on this, that we have Wendy Burry, their executive director, come to us and do a little presentation. Would you be okay with that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Good idea.
All right, so I'll have Wendy come to our next meeting.
Can you name some of the cultural activities? I mean, to me, I give the money to the fair.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wendy will come in and talk about it, but I think the library certainly hosts a lot of activities that have to do with cultural activity. And you're talking about, when I'm talking about arts, we're talking about artists, we're talking about people who haven't had the ability to perform. We have a lot of talent here in North Stonington. We certainly have seen that at No Snow Fest. And a lot of those people have been adversely impacted, and getting that sector kind of back up to what it was is it's slow going. I mean, we're certainly not a city, so we don't have the same type of culture. Our culture is just a little bit different than you'd see in a city, certainly.
Oh, I understood. I'll look forward to the presentation.
Yeah, so I'll have her come. I'll ask Wendy if she can come to our next meeting and give a short presentation about how they would help North Stonington with those funds. Next thing, outdoor space upgrades. So what we talked about, what I have here were a couple of ideas, but certainly open to other ones. In the event COVID-19 resurfaces, we must be even more prepared with the public to utilize outdoor public spaces. We have a deficiency with our recreation fields and have a need for public restrooms at Hewitt Farm. We could use these funds to upgrade both our recreation field, which needs help, as we've heard from many meetings, and the Hewitt Farm cabin, perhaps for bathrooms. Thoughts?
Well, let me jump right in on that. Okay. We're having a porta potty delivered today for an event tomorrow. But I don't see that the Hewitt Farm needs a lot of that kind of stuff. They've been there since we opened in 2012. And, people come when they're going to go to a place, better than anybody probably, where they want to be outside, etc., walking, doing trails, etc. And you're not going to put, things everywhere there. We we probably should have maybe one place where people would know that they would go, which that area that you're talking about, the cottage you wouldn't want to go into, but we could get one, but it's not a big thing. It should not be a big thing, I don't think, at this point in its life. And because we don't have the ability to use alcohol and you know, and stuff like that, we have to be very careful about what we set up there. It's the truth.
Do you have any feedback on the rec field upgrades,
I think the rec fields is fine. They should do it. Yes.
Bob?
If the rec field upgrades are gonna happen, they can happen through the budgeted monies through the rec department. They can add money to their budget. This wasn't high up on my list. I mean, we're known for ponds and trails and rivers and all sorts of outside things already that people come and enjoy, that we don't have to put money into. So when it comes to the COVID-19, I'm thinking of people that really need it versus some things are nice to have, some things are needs. This is a nice to have. I just don't think it needs to come out of COVID money.
I would like to say, just to agree with you, we've had so much coming to the farm this year. It's amazing.
Mm.
So when we get the house fixed and everything like that, we can do more, I think. But
And there may be some additional grants down the road we can use.
Yeah. So, and just a reminder too, I mean, this is about trying to make sure that we're ready if, whether it's COVID or some other public emergency. You know, the one thing that we had that a lot of other towns didn't have was outdoor space. And that's really all anyone could do for a year. So investing in those spaces is certainly a really appropriate use of funds. I'm not against budgeting for stuff like that, but I think we all know what the budget process is like, and pretty tough to see anything increased in there. So we're gonna have to find a use for the monies that we have here. And I want to make sure, you know, I think it's, you know, if there's funds here and there's an opportunity to improve some of these things that people could do, it's not a bad idea. But
you know, actually, when you say that, I remember we were talking about using the carriage house there for things, and maybe we could find something that would be workable in there. It's just a thought.
I think I talked, you know, when I put this list together, it was after, you know, Juliet, Christina and I met to talk about a lot of this stuff. We did talk about the carriage house as the first option, but it didn't, that was not, I don't remember exactly why we were refraining from that, but I think that was.
I think it was because of parking. We thought the cabin area was better because there was already water there and the parking is there. And if we were having, depending on what we do with the John Dean Gallup house, if you're having someone living in the house, you don't necessarily want people using that building right next to it in and out for restrooms and things like that.
Exactly where I would put it. That is the main parking area, and that would be exactly where I would put it. But it would be one porta john.
Yeah, I think we were, you know, this number that's on here would be for both things. I think we were thinking small for restrooms. But I think something not a porta john that we bring in. I think something that would be constructed and possibly having a composting system or something like that.
I think when you think about that beautiful gem, you know, would there be more events, you know, weddings, things like that would happen there? But I mean, there's, you know, certainly they make nice porta johns to bring in.
We did have just this past month, someone coming to get
married.
Yes, but she was there with all her friends, and then they go someplace else for the rest of it, basically.
Right. Again, as Nita said, there's no alcohol, so
there's no
weddings.
alcohol. That's something we could pursue someday. I don't think it's really washed out forever, but see.
Okay. Moving on then. Sustainability Growth and Recovery Coordinator pilot. So we have an opportunity. At least you have to try to look at everything as opportunities. With our PDZO leaving, possibly we might want to think about hiring someone to help implement the aforementioned projects. workforce development, COVID-19 relief program that EDC is putting together, outdoor space upgrades, cultural recovery, as well as make sure our businesses in town are supported. And sustainability is at the forefront of progress in town. Having a dedicated team member to move these initiatives forward would be paramount in their success. So I just had a number there. I don't know if it's a full-time or a part-time position. I guess initially looking at the possibility of a position like this being funded through these funds was an interesting proposition because it would be outside of the budget, but of course it would have to be budgeted after that if the position would be retained. But I think when I think about a position like that, the big things that are going to get us to the next level in North Stonington is follow through on the water and sewer. And we really need somebody dedicated to pick up that torch and run with it. Certainly we've been doing our best with it, but it is a big undertaking. And what it comes down to is our grand list is not growing at the rate in which we'd like it to. If we had somebody dedicated that was a little bit more focused on those issues as well as some of these other things, I think we could potentially grow our grand list, and it would certainly pay for itself in spades in 3 years. Just a thought. I think we have more to talk about as far as we need to fill positions here. And we'll talk more about that in the regular agenda, but I wanted to get a sense. I did meet with both planning and zoning chairman and the economic development chairman to kind of float some of these ideas by them. So
Is this position in lieu of filling the position that Juliet had before, or is this position in addition to that other position?
So I think that there's a feeling after talking with the chair of P&Z, to fill the planner position full time again. I was open-minded in my mind anyway to either filling it full time or looking at like the Connecticut Council of Governments. They support a number of towns in planning. But I think after talking with the P&Z chair, it seems to me that there's interest in filling the position full time for the planner and possibly breaking off zoning from that person's responsibilities. We have 2 towns that surround us that have zoning openings right now. So I think there's a possibility of working with another community to have a zoning official support multiple towns. So that's kind of being discussed right now. But ultimately, Bob, my initial thought was that you could have a reduction in planning, but I don't think after my conversations, that's something that would happen. So.
Yeah, just noticed that the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments was asking for monies from their individual towns that they represent to put on similar person to help us, which would only cost the town $10,000 over a 4-year period. So it came down to $2,500 a year. That made sense to me. And then that's a person we could fall back on. Probably not going to help us so much with infrastructure for sewer and water, but would help us as far as the American Recovery Act.
Yeah.
I'd have to hear more about this. I think that I look at the 275. I know you said it's just a rough estimate, but it comes up to $92,000 a year for 3-year position. And then at the end of 3 years, now we're looking at, we just grew government by another position for $92,000 a year, which is an awful lot of money. So I'm willing to listen to more of it, but on face value, I know when we did all boards and commissions and we did a survey, I don't believe this survey got a really warm, didn't get a warm review. It got a kind of a mixed review. I think it was maybe a 50-50 on who thought it was a good idea and who didn't. So that tells me it wasn't something that was overwhelmingly approved. But anyway, let's hear more about it.
Okay, so yeah, and I think when we surveyed that, I think only about a quarter of the respondents responded or something to that particular question when we put it up there. But yeah, I think we have a little more work to look into this. and see, how that takes shape. I had put this out before the Council of Governments had come forward with their request. What they're looking to implement probably we won't get the level of attention. Not that they're not great, they are, but they are going to support, all of their member towns with this position. I think they'll help us a lot with probably on the paperwork side of things and some of the more big picture things. But that actually leads us into a good next thing that is not on my list, but was in your packet. And that was the appropriation for the Council of Governments for that position. So they're asking every member town, and I will mention this is proposed. This has not gone to the council to the full COG membership yet, which it will go on Wednesday. And I would be surprised if it wasn't approved. And it makes a lot of sense. So I would suggest that we also support it. It's 10, what is the number? 10,000?
10,092.92.
10,092.92. And that's a 4-year commitment for a position that would be at the Council of Governments to support the COVID relief, which, I think that's a good way to get that support. It makes sense to me.
Me too.
Okay, moving on sections 3 and 4, I didn't have any recommendations for funding opportunities, which was replacing lost public sector revenue, which we didn't have that situation here. Providing premium pay for essential workers. Number 5, investing in water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, making necessary improvements to improve access to clean drinking water, support vital wastewater and storm infrastructure, and expand access to broadband internet. In our discussions in all boards and commission, the group, seemed like the most pressing issue that was discussed and had the most support was to make sure we had clean water. Among discussion items were land procurement, sewer infrastructure. If water is brought in, sewer will likely be needed. A water tower and well testing. So I just have a number. I don't know what the number would be. And after we've gone through and kind of vetted this a little bit more, I think we may want to allocate even more money in that area. That's going to be an expense that is pretty substantial depending on what we do for the town. But I think there's a lot more work to do to get us to a clear path on that.
So Mike, we're done with this group, right? But
I'm done, and now it's time if you have any thoughts.
well, so are you taking it next week to the Board of Finance?
What I'd like to do tonight in our meeting, hear from the public,
Right.
and then I'd like us to move forward. At least what I've heard based on our feedback now is that I would move forward probably 4 items, which we already did move forward the per diem, but I'll bring it up for motion again. The health district funding, the social services funding, and the Connecticut Council of Governments funding. So it's not a lot of stuff, but I would probably try to move that forward to town meeting as soon as possible.
And could you send it to us first to see it before you send it to them? I mean, are you going to make changes to it so that we?
So what I would do is I would put a proposal together tomorrow.
Okay.
And of course I would send it to the selectmen as well. And it would be what I propose. And all it's going to be is, this is the number, this is why we're proposing it. And I'll just tell the Board of Finance that, and I'll ask them to approve it.
Okay.
And they can,
That
do whatever they
sounds
want.
perfect. That sounds perfect. Thank you.
Do you have any other things that I didn't bring up that you wanted to discuss, Bob,
No.
Nita?
No.
Okay. With that, that would bring us to agenda item number 4, public comment on agenda and non-agenda items. The Board of Selectmen respectfully requests that any public comments do not exceed 2 minutes per person in the respect for everyone's time. We do have people online and here in person. So for the online, I would ask for Bailey's help, recognizing anyone online, and we will start if there is any hands online. If there's anyone who wanted to make a public comment, certainly you do not have to, but we
How do
welcome your
you,
public
how do you
comments.
raise your hand on here?
You go to the reactions area at the bottom of your screen, and there should be a little thing when you click on it that says raise hand. If you're on the phone, you can unmute. Bailey, do we have any hands online?
Not at the moment.
Do we have any comments from the audience? Yes, just if you would just come up to the microphone and turn it on and just speak into the microphone.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. It's a non-agenda item. I've been going up to the landfill a lot lately and bringing brush up there. And that brush pile is getting awful high. You're probably aware of that. I just didn't know if you're going to have a guy come down. I think they usually have them come down and chip it up. I didn't know if that was going to be done soon, or because I've had other people ask me about it too. So I said, well, I go to a lot of meetings. I might as well bring it up.
Thanks for bringing it up, Brian. Yeah, the SCARA does come out. We are sharing a brush with the other member
How
town
do
of
you,
SCARA.
how do you get the menu of things you can do?
If you
Where's
have,
the-
who is that? You can just speak. If you, whoever just said, how do you get the menu? If you have a comment, just go ahead and add it.
Hi, it's
But-
Jennifer Dayton.
Jennifer Dayton.
Hi,
Welcome.
I'm sorry. I'm usually on an iPad and I've never done it on the phone, so please bear with me. Good to be speaking with all of you. I wanted to indicate my support for several of the proposals. First of all, I think the communication system is absolutely needed. In a democracy, the government has to communicate with its citizens. When we have low turnout for a referendum, it wastes a lot of time. It's costly in the time of our volunteers and our elected officials. It produces an undemocratic result because we really don't know what the majority thinks or wishes. So I fully support a communication system. Of course, I support the workforce development initiative. So thank you for considering that as well. And I'm really pleased as a volunteer at the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center that they are coming to North Stonington now. It's really important that we continue that work. And that's it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Bailey, do we have any other comments online?
Let's see. Key Lewis, you recognized? It's Pat. Oh,
You just have to unmute.
I'm sorry. Here we go. It has to do with the old and new town hall buildings. Would we be able to use more of the upstairs space where the police are if there was an elevator going up there? Would that be anything monies might be considered for, along with improving the HVAC system? The second thing was the outdoor space and upgrades. I don't know if at Hewitt property they could use a kind of a bathroom or some kind of a space for when they have outdoor activities like snowshoeing or cross-country skiing. On the workforce development, some of the colleges do have programs, but if you go to QVCC, that's far away. It would be good if they had some workforce, not only during the day, but in the evening when some people work during the day, maybe at skills that they don't make a lot of money for and would like training doing something else. I don't know if evening would be considered as well. The water in our water and sewer, we talked a lot about water improvements, doing towers and maybe even doing our own water system, but I'm not so sure everybody was so keen on the sewer piece of it. And the last thing had to do with the planning and zoning. You said there were openings for zoning in other towns, and I'm not sure if that meant zoning enforcement. Zoning enforcement is different than the planning and zoning when we make regulations or change regulations or have public hearing based on regulations. So zoning is not just considered zoning enforcement. And I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to by keeping the planner and the zoning separate. So I think I have other comments, but I won't have any more time. So I'll let it be at that. Oh, I have one more thing. This list that we have here, do we have to submit what our requests are to the state? And is there a timeline or a deadline that it has to be submitted by? That's all. Thank you.
Yes, I'll get into the process when we get into that agenda item on the rescue plan. And you, Pat, the planning and zoning is that whole thing is gonna come to your board for discussion, so I won't get into it here. Any other comments online?
Yes, Brett Matriani, you're recognized.
Hello, it's Brett Mastriani, 60 Jeremy Hill. I see that staffing is on the agenda, and I'm not sure if it is in regards to the planning position, but if it is, and I don't know where that is headed, I would like the selectmen to know that I've also talked to Lou, chairman of planning and zoning, and we are on board with trying to keep that position the way it is and the job description the way it is. And we would like to try to move that forward as fast as possible to at least get it up and get applications in based on how it is. Now, that position is also hired or appointed by planning and zoning and EDC with some input from the selectman's office, but it is a position hired through those commissions. So we would like to get it moving. I know there's more discussions, but I see it on the agenda, and I'm not sure where that's headed. So I just wanted to make those comments prior to that. Thank you.
Any other comments? No? Yes.
I just wanted to again mention the drainage system in Kingswood. I would hope that the selectmen continue to follow up on this and make it an agenda item in the future to ensure that something moves forward, action moves forward. And once again, I would ask that an engineer be involved so that it is not a wasted effort. Such as one of the things, I think it's been over a year now, maybe a year and a half or two, that I was told that we would run cameras through a problematic area of the drain, and that has never happened. It was attempted and never successfully achieved, and lo and behold, that's where we had an issue this last storm. So I would hope that if the town doesn't have the ability to do it, that they contract out. We had utilized I think Richard White at one time to do it. I don't know if they still do that, or if, I'm not 100% positive it was them, but we need to resolve the issue. It's an issue for a great number of homes in Kingswood, and I would hope that the selectmen include it on their agenda and be part of the action that moves forward on the item. When we did the drainage project in Kingswood, it was a Board of Selectmen initiative. It was not a Nick Mullane, decision to make. I think the more people involved in the decision, we might, hopefully we'd be more successful. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. American Rescue Plan update discussion action. We've just discussed this for a long time, so having heard not much else I would like to move forward. I would like to suggest a motion, but it sounds like Bob, maybe you have more feedback.
Just the, I was listening to Jennifer Dayton's recommendation. And I think I agree with that. So I would like to at least send that to town meeting also for the implementation of communication, phone, text, email system. As she said, in a democracy, you want to have is the best communication possible with the, with your taxpayers. And I would add that to the list that we're going to send to town meeting.
So I don't have any problem with that. I would probably word that as a not to exceed number of say 5,000. I don't see it being more than that. I think we got a proposal from the other company. Yeah, go ahead, Christine.
The proposal you got, was it a per year or just an implementation of the system? I think we should keep it as not to exceed 15, just to be safe.
Okay, that's fine. I don't have it because I didn't expect us to move it forward tonight. But that wasn't the proposal I was suggesting. We're meeting with another company tomorrow. I have no problem putting this on the call. I mean, if we have better information, we'll just present the better information at the meeting. So.
Yeah, because the town meeting's a little ways off anyway, so you'll have more information. By then.
Yeah, and I mean, even if the call itself represents that number, if at the town meeting we know that it's only going to cost 5, we'll just tell people that. So
good.
Oh, actually, to be clear, hang on, let me back up because that number, so according to our process is anything over 20,000 goes to the town, not under 20,000. So this will actually only go to Board of Finance for approval.
That's fine too.
Okay.
Fine.
Okay, so what we would look to do is out of the items that we discussed and seem to agree on, I would look for a motion to approve for recommendation to the Board of Finance, a 3-year a contribution to the North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company for $165,000, which would be distributed on an annual basis in 3 equal payments. We would look, and we can do this all as one, a $15,000 appropriation to the Ledgely Health District, a $15,000 appropriation to the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center, a appropriation not to exceed $15,000 for the purpose of upgrading or purchasing a communications, phone, text, email type system to for the town to communicate any emergency or non-emergency situations within the town. I think that was the only items.
And the SCOG.
SCOG for $10,092.92 for the Southeastern Connecticut Council of Governments for the purpose of their hiring of a planner associated with this American Rescue Plan oversight for their member towns.
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Can we just word it as a municipal notification system to shorten the wording on the emergency, non-emergency?
That sounds like a better way to term it, Christine.
Thank you.
The words were eluding me. So if there's no objection to that amendment,
None.
No.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 300. So we'll send that to Board of Finance and I will present that Wednesday night.
Not this Wednesday.
Yes,
Oh,
this
it is
Wednesday.
This Wednesday. So we'll get to that.
Okay.
Okay, additional appropriation requests. So I thought we should at least talk about this. I don't know if we want to do this or not. But as you know, our steep grant letter did come through for the rest of the roads in Kingswood, Meadowwood, Cedar Ridge that we have to finish. With the funds that we have from steep, we will be finishing Cedar Ridge and we will be left with 3 roads in Kingswood to do after. It occurred to me that we may just want to ask for an appropriation to finish this project now. So in other words, the paver's coming back out in September to finish paving the roads that were part of the steep grant. And we could just have them do the rest of the project if we had the money. And the way to have the money is to do an additional appropriation for the money. Or we can just budget for it. And again, knowing how the budget process has been going, this is approximately $440,000 for the remainder of the paving,
410.
410,000. I wanted to see if the selectmen had an interest in asking for an appropriation for the remainder of the funds. So that way, when the paver comes back out, they could just do all the rest of the roads in Kingswood, and then that paving project would be completed.
Like, I'd like to see the, as Sean just brought up, I would like to see whatever issues we're having in Kingswood settled before we spend the money on the roads and then possibly have to tear them up again too. So I'd like, if there's any issues in Kingswood, can we put those to bed?
So the comments, first of all, the drainage in Kingswood has not really been an issue. We've had a couple of issues with, it sounds like Mr. Murphy's had issues that he's describing in front of his property. We had one issue last year where we know exactly what the issue was, and that was that we had a huge backup over by the school where beavers and overgrowth that was not maintained was a problem, and we had a backup. The drainage that was put in back years ago has been functioning adequately. With, it sounds like the exception as being described as the commenters last week of Mr. Murphy's house and the house across the street. We have a plan to put a drain in, to extend a line from the neighbor who's across the street from him, which will extend out to the corner of Old Colony and Kingswood. That will alleviate the amount of water going into the drain in front of Sean's house and thus fix the problem. That drainage project was completed by he and his board with much input and many engineers. So I think that this fix, as to the research we did, should be adequate. This this paving project, these roads that I'm talking about, these have nothing to do with Kingswood. Kingswood is being done in September. We are going to do that drainage pipe before we pave. So we have the pipe. We can do it with the staff we have, and we know what the cost is. It's not an exorbitant amount of money. So we plan to fix that with that solution. And we do plan to pave Kingswood as it was planned all along. What I'm asking for is the possibility of paving the other 3 roads that won't be completed with these funds. And that's Old Colony, which is a very long road, Laurelwood, and Rhonda.
So are these funds above and beyond the low SIP monies and the money that we budgeted for already?
Yeah, we budgeted for all the rest of the roads along with steep funding. We don't have to do this. We're going to have the paver out there, and I'm just seeing the tea leaves of how our budgeting is going. And we've told people that we had a 4-year process to get these roads done, right? We want to fix the roads. This is a lot of money to try to budget next year. Do we want to just take it from undesignated instead? Or at least ask Board of Finance if they're interested in doing it?
We could get feedback from the Board of Finance.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm questioning, again, listening to some of the comments. So the plan that's going in with the new pipe and we're going to put it in, where did that plan come from? Was that through an engineer's?
That's through Donnie's research and highway foreman. And, he did some research on it and felt that this, because of the issue that we have in that particular, these 2 properties are in a little bit of a valley. And so that's where the problem lies, is that the runoff these properties are being affected because of the runoff. We can't displace water and have it affect other properties adversely, right? We have to take care of the water on the road. That's our responsibility. We have to take care of the water on the road. And so if water's backing up at these 2 properties, this will fix, because right now we got one drain that is feeding into this other drain. And now this will give that drain another outlet to not have the drain in front of Sean's house back up.
So if it doesn't work, where's the liability there? If it's not an engineer, it's not stamped, approved by an engineer, then which would have liability?
Where's the liability from what the last board did? That, I don't know. The drainage in the neighborhood seems to have been basically working, but we weren't here when that was installed. So I don't know.
So this appropriation's not dealing with the road that's in question with the drainage problem.
Has nothing to do with that. That is already being done in September. And that drainage issue is going to be fixed in August.
So I saw the foreman back off on the speed humps to go out and get a third party look at him because he knew he wasn't an expert on speed humps. I think I'd like to have him tell us that how he came about with the solution. You said he did some research, but how did that come about?
That has nothing to do with this agenda item. So the agenda item in question is, do you want to approve? And I'm not saying you can't ask him. I asked him the same questions. I asked him about an engineer. I asked him these things. He was very confident in his approach, and I have the utmost trust in the staff. We have a very competent group of people who are quite qualified at the work that they do. And, I have faith in their determination. So we certainly can talk more about that separately, but this is for, do we want to take advantage of the paver being out there and have him pave the rest of the roads or not?
All right, if we treat them as separate items and we do not let the issue we were speaking about with Donnie die, I'm not opposed to bringing this particular appropriation to the board, seeing that it deals with 3 other roads, not the road in question.
Yeah, just so you know, the roads in question will be paved in September. The pipe will be replaced in August. And if you want to hear from Donnie about how he came to that solution, we can.
No, I would, because when I questioned him on the speed humps is when he started questioning himself on his ability. So I'd just like to have him convince me that this is the right thing to do. It's going to work. I mean, nothing's perfect, nothing's foolproof, but I like to be 99% sure that this is the right solution before we end up spending more money to then tear up the newly paved road and then have to correct it later. But yeah, it has nothing to do with this appropriation, so I would be willing to approve this appropriation. At least have it go to the Board of Finance.
Do you have any comments
I'm
on
ready.
the appropriation? So
I'm
can I have a motion to approve the appropriation of as presented and the amount and the line it's coming from? Or can you just motion that, Bob?
Yes, I'll motion that this appropriation as presented goes to the Board of Finance for approval.
Second.
And let the minutes reflect the $410,000 number. And it would go to B 2702. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Staffing discussion. So a couple things. As the selectmen have been made aware, are the admin finance for, I mean, not admin finance, God help us. No, not you. The administrative assistant for the town had to move unexpectedly, and so has been continuing to provide support remotely, which has been helpful, but is not a permanent solution. So before I went out and just posted the position again for a part-time administrative assistant, again, as we have been, and let me just make note, and this is a good time to mention this, we have reduced government in our tenure. We have reduced staffing for the most part, just so everyone's aware. We have reduced positions in our government. So when we talk about adding staffing, my opinion is that we've tried to be efficient with where we have reduced staff, so that way we can invest in staff that maybe is more appropriately allocated. This conversation should take place about the administrative assistant. The Board of Finance elected to reduce the first selectman's salary in the last budget. So, we reduced the administrative assistant back a couple of years ago to a part-time position. I just want to make sure that the selectman still wants that to remain a part-time position, given the changes that have recently transpired in the budget. Yeah, Bob.
In my opinion, it can remain a part-time position.
Nita,
I agree.
we'll post that position tomorrow to try to hire somebody new. second discussion for staffing was the fact that we have lost our PDZO. As was pointed out in the opening discussions, planning and zoning will be taking the lead on the hiring of that position. And that, it's, I think some of the things that could be discussed, but through discussions I had with Lou and Brett, it seems like there's not necessarily an appetite for a reduction in the planning position or in contracting for a planner, which is something that a lot of other towns do, which would also reduce expense to the town. And I think it's important to recognize the reason we talk about reduction of staff or reduction of costs as it relates to these things is through attrition. When people leave, that's the good opportunity to take a look at this stuff. We don't have great growth in our grand list right now, and we have continued to fund our budgets, underfund our budgets. Okay. So what happens is costs go up, we're underfunding our budgets. There comes a time, what are you going to do? The only place you can cut is staff, and you don't want to, I think it'd be best not to cut existing staff. So if there's an opportunity to trim, it's when somebody leaves. That's the humane way to kind of try to look at it if we can. So with all that being said, it doesn't seem that there's an appetite to either contract for a planner or anything like that. I had been initially a proponent for this position that I kind of described earlier on to utilize 3 years worth of rescue plan funding for this recovery, sustainability, and growth coordinator, which could have done a lot of the work as it relates to water sewer, as well as development. And that could have been funded outside the budget, at least for a period of time, with the hope that our grand list would be brought back up to a place where then we could afford to budget for a position like this. That being said, we are where we are right now. We have Juliet for another, on Fridays at least, through early September. It behooves us to advertise for this position pretty eminently. I would definitely suggest that that we look to advertise the position. I would like to have another meeting. We did have a meeting scheduled with Lou, Brett, and myself. The three of us did not meet because conflict arose. But I did meet separately with Brett and Lou. I'd like to meet together with Brett and Lou and just put a blessing on the position and get that out to advertisement. So if there's no objection from the selectmen, I'd like to move that forward.
Are we still using this as what they're?
Not that. That's my proposed. We have more talk about that to happen.
Okay.
We would look at the existing job description, and if any modifications are necessary, we'll take a look at that as a group, the three of us. So the existing job description, no, the three of me, Lou, that's what I'm asking your permission of. It's really planning and zonings, at least as it was described from Lou to me the last time. It was really P&Z, and I think EDC had some input onto it because they folded in the development piece as well. So they're kind of the lead on the hire.
And is there a part of what Juliet's job was is taken away? Is that correct?
The discussion from, and that'll be discussed by P&Z, but there's discussion of potentially stripping away the zoning enforcement piece from that position. As I mentioned earlier, there are two other abutting towns.
Right.
Actually, I don't know if they're abutting, but they're right next to, one of them is close to us that have a zoning enforcement vacancy as well. So the possibility of us maybe teaming up.
Yeah.
So I just assume move forward, meeting with Lou and Brett and get this thing advertised as soon as possible.
I agree, Mike. Anthony, you can do to accelerate it, the better.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I agree.
Okay. Moving on. Future town meeting discussion, at number 8. So we will have to have a town meeting about the per diem. And if the appropriation request is approved by the Board of Finance, that would also potentially be on the town meeting. So depending on how the Board of Finance meeting goes on Wednesday, I will look to get us together to potentially call a town meeting. I'm thinking early August.
Mhm.
Sounds fine.
Okay.
It's specifically focused on what?
The per diem approval for the, well, for the contribution to the fire company, as we would word it, and the appropriation for the roads, if those are approved through the Board of
So
Finance.
pretty much that's
That's
just
it.
those two things. Okay.
Unless there's something else that comes up
Comes
that we
up.
want to put on there. But financially, there's nothing else financially.
Okay.
And I don't know that there's anything else that would involve
Okay.
the town meeting.
Okay.
I think we're going to end up having a number of town meetings coming up because of this, the way we're tackling the rescue money. We want to execute the use of this money as soon as possible so that it gets into the hands of people that need it. So each time we have more clarity, I think EDC is going to get together and put their plan together hopefully very soon for their funds. So that we may follow another town meeting in September. I'd like to not be much later than that for those funds. So the conception, okay, number 9 then, if that's okay. The Council of Governments presentation of route to sidewalk conceptual design. I just put this back on here because we had the presentation and then no one could hear our comments last time. So I just wanted to make sure if the selectmen wanted to add any commentary, like maybe reiterate what you said last time so that people could actually hear it if you wanted to.
I don't remember saying anything last time, but anyway, I have two things to say. When I read through it again and I printed out the presentation, two things that worry me, and I think I'm not for or against it at this point. I think it has merit. And if you look at the pictures, it looks beautiful and it does not make the town look like Groton or any other town. It looks very rural. But my fear is it does mention taking property that's not town property from individuals to use to get the amount of footage they need to widen the sidewalk space. And the other thing is to be able to let the town know exactly what, if any, there's any cost to the town down the road. I know we said there might be some plowing issues because the sidewalk would be wide enough to put a pickup truck with a plow on it. Is there anything like that the town will have to pick up? Overall, it seems like it was a really good presentation, and again, looking at the pictures, it looks wonderful. But what will it mean to the town as far as expense, if any, and what kind of upkeep is there, the responsibility, and again, taking property that's not the town property through any kind of eminent domain always makes me nervous.
Nina, do you have any comments that you want to reiterate?
No.
I would just say that we've had fatalities, continue to have safety issues there. And I have heard from a lot of people, they are very favorable for this. So I think this is a great opportunity for the town. I think we need to really be kind of cheerleaders for it to get the state to do something like this. I think it'd be a great improvement for our businesses, for our residents, for cyclists. I think some people say, well, people shouldn't be walking on Route 2 anyway. Well, people do walk on Route 2. They do. And it's not going to stop because some people have to walk on Route 2 to get where they're going because they walk. So, I think we have a responsibility to try to do what we can to protect the safety of people and really just improve the aesthetics of the town. I think it's a great opportunity. So I'm very thankful to the Council of Governments who footed the bill through grant funding for the plan. Just to reiterate, I think that question was answered. And to be clear, it is a state road. There would be no town funds that would be expended to do this project. But I think in order for the state to take action on things, sometimes it really helps when the towns are behind it. So
I agree. Would you be opposed to having a presentation done at a town meeting at the future coming up?
I would not be opposed at all. I think
Just because there was few bodies, they couldn't really hear, and just thought at a town meeting when we have more people there and do a presentation, it would make sense to me that more people would hear it.
would you like me to try to get it on the next town meeting?
Hmm.
Okay. I will ask if the Council of Governments is able to attend our next town meeting and present as well. Not a problem. Number 10, Billings State Lake Boat Launch Parking Update. Basically, I just wanted to update the selectmen. I'm sure you saw in my updates, my weekly update recently, last couple weeks ago, we had a meeting down there with NCON, the state police, boating and fishing, about the continued, I don't want to say continued because I think it has subsided a little bit, but I think that's because of some of the actions we've taken down on Billings Lake. Lots of people, last year was a real problem. And there's only so many enforcement people. There's not many that enforce that type of thing. So what they're doing at that parking lot is they're changing the layout of the parking lot. So it's more defined as to where people can and can't park. I can tell you firsthand, I went down there on a Sunday to just check on things last year on a hot Sunday afternoon, and there were people parked literally everywhere, including in the boat launch. It was completely inappropriate. And residents down there, had the right to be pretty upset about it. We've made a lot of improvements to Billings Road. We have the speed bumps that we've put in there. We have more no parking signs. And now with this improvement with the parking area, it's going to be more defined as to where trailers can park and where individuals can park. The only other thing I'll mention, only because I think you were sent some correspondence on it, about the trail that's down there. It was brought up to me in the meeting that we do have a trail marked down there, and that it would help potentially if that trail were not marked down there. Simply because that's an excuse for people to take up more parking spaces, that it's really meant for fishing and boating. It's not supposed to be, the parking isn't really supposed to be designated for the trail. Unfortunately, we want everybody to be able to enjoy the outdoors as much as possible, but there are only so many parking spots down there available. As of late, it doesn't seem like we've had a problem necessarily. I will say that I did bring the taking of the trail sign down to the Conservation Commission, and they had reached out to the Billings Lake Association to get their feedback on it. So I think they're going to be coming back to me with commentary as to whether or not they feel they want to take the trail sign down or not down there. So I'll update you on that. But really, my purpose was to show you the layout for the new parking that's down there. This is nothing the town is doing. We're not expending any money to have to do this or anything like that. It's just the state is doing it to try to help control the populace down at the lake. Comments, questions?
You have a comment. So I guess two things. One is I went down there yesterday and I saw a carload of probably 6 or 7 people just leaving. They looked like they had bathing suits on and looked like they had come from somewhere. There's signs on there that say no swimming. So obviously they had been swimming somewhere. We pay close to $500,000 a year for state police. Why is it that when they're doing patrols, they couldn't go down there once a day on a hot day, not more, but on a hot day, it's not, if it's raining out, you don't bother, but if it's a nice hot day, people could be swimming. Why wouldn't they go down there and patrol? And if it says no swimming, why wouldn't they ticket somebody or tell somebody that they're not supposed to be swimming? So we pay a lot of money for police.
So that's a good question. And part of the reason we had that large group down there, it's not I don't want to say it's not their job, but it's not their right. NCON is the overseeing force for waters for public safety. The state police have been down there more ticketing, looking for folks in the parking lot, stuff like that. But they're not the water authority necessarily. But they have been doing a better job of ever since last year. We've had multiple meetings, and this isn't on the agenda because we're having more problems. We're doing much better than we were last year. This is just an update. I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I do. One other comment. So when I went down, I saw the rock that I don't go down Billings Lake. So I saw the picture in the paper of the family jumping off the rock. Must have been the founding family of Billings Lake because the name was Billings, supposedly. But anyway, so that's an advertisement as far as I'm concerned. I mean, if I'm 15, 16 years old, I see a picture in the paper of people jumping off a rock into the water. That looks like a lot of fun, and I like to find that rock and do the same thing. But why, if we have a relationship with the day, why are they showing pictures of people jumping off a rock in a no swim area that's against the law in the town? I mean, to me, we have a relationship with Jason. Jason had the picture in there with his article, I believe. So why wouldn't we have a conversation with the day and say, we don't want you to be doing that? It's against the law to be swimming there, and you're actually glorifying it by showing a man and woman and their kids jumping off the rock in a place that you shouldn't be jumping off. So I was taken back by the article in the paper and the picture. So that's it.
Luckily, kids don't read the paper, so they probably didn't see it. But I don't know who. I'll have to look at the article. I don't know who wrote it. I didn't see it.
Front page, right?
It was.
It was the front
It was
page?
on Friday. It was front page of Region or front page of the main. I don't know. It was one of the front pages, but it was on.
Child was only like 6 years old, 6 or 7.
Yeah, it was in Friday's paper, I think.
Okay.
Anyway, just to me, they're showing something that's illegal and almost glorifying that this is a fun thing to be doing.
Well, we don't have a day reporter. Actually, we have an intern covering us right
This
now.
wasn't her. I think it was Jason Valley's name was
That's
on.
the Sun, not the Day. Are you sure it was the Day? Jason's from the Sun.
No, it was a day. So maybe it wasn't Jason then.
It
but
wasn't
in the-
Jason.
Okay.
I'll have to look. I don't know.
Well, thanks.
All right. 298 North Wesley Road negotiations update. Bob, do you want to?
Yeah, just so we're not negotiating anymore because we have no one to negotiate with. The one and only bidder that I was speaking to is withdrawn, and they are not going to rebid. There's been discussion about going out to another RFP, which we can discuss. You can hold that discussion shortly if you'd like, but they said if we do go for another RFP, they weren't going to apply, and they were dropping out of the current discussions. So where we are now is back to square one. And I don't know how much you want to get into the RFP at this point, Mike, or if you want to handle that part of it.
Bob, I want to thank you for taking the lead on the negotiations, and I'm sure it had no bearing on your efforts, which I know were extensive on trying to get this done. So thank you for trying. I think we've seen the challenge. First of all, at the state of the town, we talked, and when we went for the appropriation, we talked ad nauseum about the amount of effort we've put into this building. And I think it's been a challenge because, quite frankly, I think that there's not a great appetite from the townspeople on doing much with this building. Everything we've tried has resulted in kind of pushback. We have extensive limitations with the deed. I'm not really sure what another RFP is going to yield us, but I'm willing to give it one more try. And I would say that we try to advertise the RFP extensively on any and all sites, both through education, the state, and the town, and send it out to all networks, and see what we come back with. I do not have high hopes. I feel like there's only so many education facilities out there. We had 2 that had been interested, and unfortunately neither was able to come to fruition. So I'm not really sure if there's any others out there, but I think we can do our best to try to get the word out there. And if we don't get any bids with this RFP, we probably need to talk about whether we just list the property in its entirety. What else do we do with it?
So I would think we do the same RFP. It's a lease / buy or lease to buy. I talked to Jim. He understood the issues with the state site that he didn't understand, and he does now. He's been speaking with the state, knows exactly the process to take place. I would also talk to the Board of Ed and make sure that whatever sites they're involved in, whether it be CAVE or whoever happens to be, because it's an educational center that goes on the proper sites there. So educators are looking at it. But I think we owe it to the town to put our best foot forward and get it on as many sites as possible, as you just mentioned. And then if we get nothing, then we can go to a plan B. But at this point, I think we have to give it the best effort. The last time going to through miscommunications, and I don't know what happened with the Board of Ed, but we only went on the one town website, and I think that was it was unfortunate. So I think moving forward, we have to be on as many sites, so as many pairs of eyes look at it as possible.
So can I speak?
Please.
Okay, so are we putting it out the same way as it was put out before? Or are you changing anything about it?
My opinion is we approved the RFP. I would put it out again, just change the dates on it, and get it on as many sites as we could. I don't know why we would change at this point. Give more people a chance to see the RFP as was written originally that we approved.
Did what we do this last time include the whole building
It did.
completely?
Mhm.
Okay,
And then of course during negotiations, that was addressed. I won't get into negotiations now, but that was addressed on how each portion of the building would be used, not used, torn down, not torn down. And that's, we'd have the same conversation moving forward. But I would put the RFP out the same way it was options.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I did interrupt you.
That's okay.
Is how much time would you give them? Because there was one that was only 2 weeks at one point in time, and I think people were very unhappy about that.
Yeah, I think that we should extend that to a longer period of time, and especially now with school out, we can get walkthroughs and get anything else we need to get done, but more than 2 weeks. It should be maybe 4 weeks, but
Yeah.
just an opinion.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and put the RFP out. We'll put it out for a 4-week period. And we'll just adjust the rest of the dates.
Mike, can we get something back to us saying, once they're on these sites, that they're actually on these sites and what sites they were put on? That it was put on, so we know. I mean, I'd like to get something from the Board of Ed and ask them what sites you put it on and get some sort of assurance that it did go on those sites.
Actually, when we post it to the town site, Bob, if you would, I know you're kind of like the liaison to the Board of Ed, if you would follow up with them and to ask them to post it and ask them to tell us where they post it.
Yeah, so as soon as Jim posts it to the town and the state, I'll have him send it to the Board of Ed, and I'll speak to Christine about how that process should work.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. And, we'll be optimistic. We'll keep working. We've worked very hard on this. To me, this is a great gem in the middle of our village that, could have a great life, with the right partner. So we'll work on that. Number 12, rather, tax refunds.
I make a motion, we approve the tax refunds as presented. There's 2 of them, one for $62.75 and one for $24.69.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 3-0-0. Number 13, Selectmen expense discussions. The only thing I would mention, which was already approved by the Selectmen, was the employee appreciation, which took place last fiscal year. I think we had initially, I think it ended up going a couple $100 over what we had approved it for, but it was money we already had in the budget. So it's last fiscal year, but I just want to make sure I updated the Selectmen on that. And I'll also mention that a great time was had by the town, and I certainly expressed our appreciation for the staff in what was an insane year, really. I mean, to be in public service, an essential worker in a year like COVID, I just cannot express my thanks enough for what the town staff has done. Christine's here with us. She worked every day, from the office, as did Cheryl, as did Antoinette, and of course our highway crew, just never took any days off. Luckily everybody survived, and that's certainly not the case everywhere else. So, it was a really important year to celebrate the appreciation for the staff. And we did just have a food truck, and celebrated at Hewitt Farm and took a little half day, and it was a nice time. So yeah, it was.
It's only, I have one regret. I was out of town that day.
It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay. Well, sorry that you weren't there, Bob, but
I'm glad you had it.
well, I appreciate everybody's work too. I mean, it was for the staff, but really for all the boards and commissions as well as our board, kind of getting through what was a crazy year. And, we try to celebrate every year, but I think this year even, more so than others, just really thankful. So, any other questions on that topic? Number 14 minutes.
I will make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented for the Board of Selectmen meeting on June 22nd, 2021 at 6 p.m. as written by Christine.
And I second it.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We will wrap up with public comments on agenda items. Are there any public comments on agenda items? Yes, I'll take the first one from the audience, Brian Rathman.
Yeah, I kind of want to just make a comment on number 9 there about the sidewalk and widening of Route 2 and everything. I know I didn't get a chance to last time because of the you had to cancel the meeting because it wasn't really everybody couldn't hear.
It's just sidewalks, not widening of Route 2, but yes, go
Well,
ahead.
the sidewalk's going to be 12 foot long, 12 foot wide from what I'm reading. So if you got, that's 24 foot right there. And then if you add whatever the road is now out there, it's going to be pretty wide in different areas. Well, I didn't know if they had addressed anything on the cost. Of course, I hear, it's not going to cost you anything. It's through the state. Well, the state money is really tax money anyways. I don't know how much the state really cares about North Stonington. They care about the state. They also care about the casino up there because they always have behind the door meetings with them. And I'm kind of wondering, in the back of my mind anyways, the way I think, because they wanted to widen that road when they first come in so they could just boom, get the traffic to go up there, which I believe the town really was totally against that. And I know the casino started buying their own land and was going to try to bypass Route 2. It was a whole big thing about it. I heard nothing about lights. I'm sure the next thing they probably say, "Oh, we're not going to put lights on." Of course, they're not going to, but they will. In Groton, they did the same thing. They used to have farms down there, and they put the sidewalks in so people could walk to the little mini stores they had. Well, a lot of those stores disappeared. Benny's disappeared, or a whole bunch of them disappeared, and now they're left with empty buildings again. I don't want to see us become Groton. I've said that a million times, and I'll say it till the day I'm dead. And I think this would be an avenue that would push us toward more to like that. And that's not North Stonington. North Stonington is agricultural. We like the grass going up from the roads. We don't need people on Route 2 bicycling, even so they say they do. You can't bicycle on 95, but they do bicycle on the roads up here. And I think it's going to be more of a problem. And who's going to plow it? I don't know if the state will really come down. I'm sure they'll be talking behind the doors again, saying, "Oh, well, if the town does it, they might give us a couple of dollars." I really don't want the liability of all that. You're going to have trailer trucks coming down that road. They come down every day, come flying down there. I worry about that stuff. It's just a 12 foot wide thing to walk on or to ride on, to bicycle on. You're going to end up having people on motorcycles. I think we're going to create more problems than what we're going to solve. The other part of it I was going to say is walking to school. How many people would really walk to school down at Route 2, especially in the rain or the snow or the cold? I know years ago when I went to the school over there, the kids used to come from Kingswood through the back way. I don't know if that's still open or not. That'd be a lot safer than walking down the road. I think it would be, when I hear it's not going to cost North Stonington anything, I've heard that story before. And if you want an example, the Hewitt property, perfect example. When we bought it, said it wasn't going to cost me anymore, and we keep putting money into it.
Brian, thank you.
Guess that's my time limit.
Are there any comments online? Bailey?
Yes. See how you're recognized. Gonna mute.
Hello. Caroline Howell, 495 Providence, New London Turnpike. I wanted to comment on the sidewalk program that you're considering. I think what we really need to be doing is addressing the root of the problem of why somebody would be walking home from work on Route 2 at night, which there's a lot of reasons. There, lack of public transportation, high taxes, low wages. I think there's programs that can be put into place that were a lot less costly than putting an entire sidewalk between the Rotary and Bon Appetito. I think that's a huge liability. I just think there has to be a lot of thought and discussion about the cost to maintain something like that should it ever come to fruition. I also wanted to ask regarding the 298 Norwich Westerly Road. I'm disappointed to hear that that didn't work out. I was really hopeful that the building would be leased. And I wanted to know, Ryan Lewis reached out to me over the weekend and asked if I had received a letter that he sent to all of you and the chairs of all the boards. Did you receive his letter at the beginning of June?
I'll have to look. I don't know. Do you have any other comments, Carolyn?
Yeah, I do have some comments because I think it's unfortunate that it seems that the information that the taxpayers are sending to our selectmen and our boards chairs is not being passed along to all of the members of the boards as it was asked. And I think that he had some valid points, although I don't agree with the entire letter that he sent. I did forward it to my board and my chair. And there are some things in there now that you're telling us that there is no one to lease the building. I think that you should take into consideration what he wrote in the letter, because I think that should also be an option for the town. I think you really need to consider that, and it might not be what you want or what you suggested, but I think there are a lot of valid points to it, and I think it should be considered. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
I'll take, Brett, are you standing for a comment?
Just wanted to comment. I think moving the communication program forward is a great idea. I don't know if Everbridge is one of them that you're looking at, but it's definitely one you should look at and get some costs on during this process. It's what the state uses, and it works excellent. It it sends out your text, your email, and your phone call all at the same time. So when I get one from the state, it almost immediately hits my email, text, and a voicemail all at the same time.
Everbridge, our understanding is only can be used for emergency situations. So we're looking at something that's more for any communication we'd want to send out.
Yeah, they use it for just notifications for different departments in the state, I know. So you might just want to reach out to them and talk to them direct, but I just know the system works great. I don't know the cost, but it works.
Thank you. We have another comment online. Go ahead.
Yes. Lee W. Recognized.
Hi, Lee Winokur, 24 Island Road. I'm commenting about the Billings Lake parking. I definitely like and appreciate that you guys are making changes to the parking, or the state is, but it's better down there, but it's definitely not fixed. The same day that the article came out, a group of kids broke bottles all over the rocks out there, tore out of there, and then totaled their truck, hitting a telephone pole on Billings Lake Road. So there's still a lot of problems out there. And I definitely agree. We should be removing the trail sign. And I think the answer to this is quite simple. It's you remove the trail sign and they ticket any car out there that does not have a trailer or a kayak rack. And that would get the message out to anybody that, you know, they're sending it around on social media to go out there and go swimming. And then the article in the paper doesn't help. But if they did that and they ticketed them hard and they did it consistently, I guarantee you after a couple of rounds of doing that, the word would get out and people would stop coming down here.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm Strong from Wyassup Lake Road. I was kind of interested in what you were doing up at Billings. I didn't know if it was because there was problems being created up there with drinking and potting and all that kind of stuff. So far this year and last year, it's been pretty quiet at Wyassup Lake Road. 2 years prior to that, we had a lot of parties going on up there. They were throwing the outhouses in the pond and everything else. So it was a mess. Enforcement in that area, state police, DEP, who do we call? You're the chief of police, I can call you, you know, and when it happens at nighttime at 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock. So, I mean, law enforcement is a tough issue on that kind of thing, just because we are up in the woods, you know, and it's tough to get anybody up there to do anything. Like I say, this year and last year, it's been pretty quiet, but prior to that, we had a lot of problems. So can you give me any help as to where do we go, you know, as far as
If you have a situation where there's people that are doing things they shouldn't be, call 911. That's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
Montville will handle who should be routed. If you know that's what you need to do, call 911.
Okay.
Yep. They can handle who comes out, who's going to actually respond, but that's the best course of action.
Yeah, because with I mean, we don't get any help at all from DEP up there. They don't even come to check fishing licenses or anything anymore. So it's because they just don't have staff. There's nothing available to do any police work. So okay.
All right. Thank you. Anyone else online?
I just wanted to comment on Wyassup Lake as well. It is a no swimming area. We do have people swimming there from time to time. It's mainly families, so it never bothers me because you know, as I'm out in the boat, I'm glad to see that people are there enjoying themselves. But and usually they get out of the way when you want to go up the ramp. So we don't have as Art said, we don't have the problem at Wyassup in the last couple of years with that. But some of the improvements that you made at Billings, I think should be considered for the Wyassup Lake boat launch is the marking of trailer parking and also market that the parking down there is for the boat launch area, because that is quite often filled up with people hiking on down the road in Patchogue Forest. In fact, you know, our Conservation Commission, even when they have hikes, they encourage people to park at the boat launch for it. So we have I shouldn't have to park out on the road, sometimes half in the road with the trailer. It's awful hard to do, and it's because people are being allowed to park there for the hiking trails. And I think if the DEP has done that for Billings, that it should be considered for Wyassup Lake as well. Thank you.
Mike, I asked him a quick question.
Any other comments online? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.